Yeah, so I mean, we strive for a consistent experience in the audio, video, lighting,
Correct.
Some churches, they try to wear their technology.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we got technology.
Yeah.
But yet, technology should be more transparent, right?
Yeah. Well, this is kind of funny. I was actually working with a church a couple of weeks ago, and the pastor was telling me about what they wanted to do, and he kind of goes, we want the lights and the flashy this and the flashy that and all that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, we can totally do that. And he goes, no. I don't think you understand. I'm like, okay. He goes, we have lasers. And I'm going, okay, I totally understand.
Yeah.
So they kind of wear that on their sleeve.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a hard thing to do. But I think part of the attraction to this is that, kind of going back to where I started and now after the prayer, thank you so much. I'm starting to come back. So, going back to where I started, I think a lot of it is just that when you don't know why you're doing something, and you try and do it, I mean, it's not about keeping up with the Joneses. It's about knowing why you're doing it and trying to lead people into that way, right? Yeah. So when I look at things like that, or when I look at lighting or anything like that, I kind of look at it in a way of, leadership. So again, if I'm producing a service or if I'm producing something, I'm coming in and I am actually going to come in and look at it. And most of the time when I come in, I look at it and go, okay, lighting, how does that really affect leadership? Well, we're designed to look at the brightest thing in the room. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a picture of Jesus because he's the brightest thing in the universe, and we're designed to look at him. And so with knowing that, what happens is I come in and I go, okay, what am I going to do? Well, when people are coming in, I want the house lights up and I want the stage down because it's about the people. So you come in, hey, how you guys doing? All that, it's all good. And then without him coming up and going, everybody come look up here, please, what happens? I lead them with, I start lowering the house lights, I start raising the stage lights, okay? And what happens is you're going, hey, how you doing? I have to go sit down now, and I have to look up there. Why is that, right? Because you just led them. And it's one of those things that's interesting that I found that when I was in theater, I always found it pretty interesting because we did some things with contrast of light. So we would find that even with the stage curtains open, we could be doing something and somebody would be downstage doing an act or whatever, and you could potentially see everybody doing things on the stage. Mm-hmm. And what would happen was that they would be just really focused on what's happening down here in the light. Now, when that happens, they finish the thing, they go off stage, and then the lights come up, and everybody in the audience goes, oh, how'd they do that? Yeah. And I'm like going, wait a minute, how does this work? So we've done things where we've actually studied this, and actually have done things where we would actually move the lighting in the house depending on what the actual leader was speaking. So when we come to a point of, I'm going to actually have the light in the house actually lower at a really, really slow rate, okay? Mm-hmm. Because what happens is it's a direct connection to contrast is to how bright or how big of a difference between the brightest and the darkest is in a room is to how hard somebody will focus on the brightest thing in the room. Mm-hmm. So what we found was we could actually start leading people to a point. So if I'm going to have the service start and the lights are a little bit higher here, and then as he's leading to his point, I know exactly where that is in the timeline, and slowly lower the lights in the actual room to the point where everybody is so hyper-focused on him when he's about to say his point for the message and then you're able to pull it back, and nobody in the room would know. So you can really help to lead people into those places. One of the things is also when you're going into, just color and just thinking through colors and things like that. If you ever put ADD children in a red room, you understand that color actually does some things, you know? And you put them in a blue room, it actually calms them down. So some of those things like that are very interesting to know is stuff that you can really start using to a good effect. Hey, if I have a passage or if I have a song that's just talking about, just the love of Jesus, and you can have some nice cool blues or something like that, and then you want to start having some excitement about, he's the Lion of Judah and he's coming back, and I'm ready, and you start turning into the reds and the yellows, and you can really start leading people just with light, with the song, different things like that. So just thinking those type of things through. I want to touch on video really quick too. It's interesting to me. Video is a powerful tool, for iMag or anything like that is very powerful, but also just video backgrounds and things like that. I did a tour once, and I was teaching at the tour, and afterwards, a pastor came up to me and he just said, "Man, I hear all the stuff you're saying, and I'm just not sure if I get it." And I'm like, okay, well, and I started explaining to him a little bit deeper and stuff, and then all of a sudden this song came on, and I go, oh, I know exactly what they're going to do. So I took them into the room. It's like a 3,000 seat room, and there's a huge video screen on the thing, and it was one of those things that they had on the video screen. They were playing videos. They had a VJ, so it was videos alongside what the actual song was doing, and so as they were actually doing that, they were playing different things. So the song was about Christ and how he loves, he created the universe and how he loves us and that kind of stuff. And they actually had the universe floating behind him. And then, which is powerful. And then the song starts, kind of getting into how he's, came and he's the lion, again, the Lion of Judah and that kind of thing. And they actually had this lion running across, like this animated lion running across these fields. And it was really interesting because the song keeps on building. And then when he gets to this one point, it says, the lion comes back and with a roar. And just as he says roar, this guitar just goes roar. And it goes from 50 to 100 in level. And just as he's going roar and the guitar's going brrr, the animated lion rears back and roars at the same time. Every hand in the place is up.
Yeah.
It's just, and I'm looking over at him, and this pastor looked at me, he's got tears running down his eyes, and he goes, "Oh, I get it. You don't have to say another word." I said, so that's kind of part of those type of things. The other thing that I was talking about too is when we're talking about just audio in general, how I think about things in general on that is that when I think about audio, I think about the person that's never been to church before. They come in, where do they sit? They sit in the back row, because that's what they do. They go through the songs. It's great. Pastor comes up and speaks. It's meaningful, of course, right? Yeah. And, we get everything down to the back bottom line of the sermon, that they're back there, and pastor comes up and goes, "Hey, can everybody just bow their head really quick? I just want to say something really quick." And they get to that point, and of course they don't want to be the only one looking around, so they bow their head too. And they have an experience that the sound system and the audio system and the acoustics of the room are so good that even though he's 100 feet away, it sounds like he's right here, just talking to them. And in that moment, all the distractions are gone, and the Holy Spirit is free to do his work. And to me, that's where I like to start. Now, having bass so big that it'll knock the devil out the church, that's great, But if you don't have that connection, that's a key missing point sometimes that I see in things. So,
Well, and this mic is heard, probably 40 to 50% of the service. And so if the system isn't rang and dialed in
correct.
for this kind of a comfortable, right?
Correct.
You're missing most of the connectivity.
Correct.
The one-on-one, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing, because if it's distracting, if it sounds, obviously, that's part of my problem today is I'm distracted and having anxiety, but it increases anxiety for people. It actually increases, it decreases their connection to anything. If stuff goes wrong, again, not that you have to be perfect or anything like that, but it's just another way for attention to be grabbed and moved into something else. It's a way for things to get, taken away from the actual take home of what you're trying to do. So being good at having that that connection and having those things in line that everything works well.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Speaking of anxiety,
Yeah.
let's really be transparent about some
Sure.
of the anxiety that operators have, whether it's video, lyrics, front of house, that if they do something and it is a mistake, a miscue, the anxiety that they carry of being called out or embarrassed in front of everybody, right? I think a lot of times we forget about the anxieties that people have because everybody knows that's the guy, right?
That is true.
It's the guy with the red beard sitting
exactly right.
it's his fault, right? Everybody, and nobody knows that there's an iPad on the front row and I'm playing games and he gets blamed for everything. No.
Right? Yeah.
But there is a level of anxiety because people do want to do good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, totally.
And so we as leadership also have to be careful that we're not smacking people from the pulpit.
That's exactly right. I actually had a guy that was he was a road dog. He's been in the trenches, and he almost came to tears because I had him helping me out with an event at a church, and the pastor was berating him from the pulpit because somebody messed up, and this will date it a little bit, but somebody messed up the CDs that they were playing, and he couldn't find the right CD. And so the pastor was literally up there going, "Really? I'm waiting." And he was literally, and it's one of those things, and that's an experienced person that's been in the hot seat a long time, let alone somebody that's just kind of volunteering and trying to help out and just trying to do what they can to help, so that's a big thing.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Want to talk about consistency in mixes and producer hat, operator hat?
Yeah. So, well, again, it goes back to, I think it goes back to, when we're looking at how, how the vision comes. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I always kind of go back to how the vision comes. I kind of believe that it comes from Father to Jesus to Holy Spirit to the head of the ministry, and then that head of the ministry needs to put it either in the heads of the people that are underneath him, or a person, whoever that person would be, and then that person needs to distill that down. And so there has to be a vision. They don't necessarily need to be an expert at all the things, but there has to be a vision that comes down so that there's a connection to what is actually happening that connects to the vision that connects up from where it all comes from. So that expectation is kind of like a car-to-car thing that I usually talk about. Usually that person is somebody that I believe needs to think about, hey, what is it like to pull into the actual church? What is it like to come in the front doors? What is it like to come in here? What am I experiencing the whole time I'm here? And then again on what comes out, on the way back out. Because I think it was Disney that said that the biggest thing that people remember is the first thing you see and the last thing you see. And those things are very important. And having somebody that is actually in control of that and who that person is, and that they have a grasp on all those type of things, and that you can distill that down into the audio mix and everything else that's going on that, because that makes a really big impact on how the rest of the sermon goes or how the rest of the series goes or anything like that. So is that kind of your question, or is that just kind of leading it there?
Yeah, and I know Tony's going to talk more about building your signature sound from the stage and band and all of that. But ultimately, that's probably one of the most influential instruments.
It is
out of everything. Yeah,
it's definitely the person back there, and that's an interesting role as well. The person back there is actually producing things. So it's interesting to me because a lot of times we usually kind of look for the most technical person. Like, oh, he knows what all those buttons are. Oh, he knows how to connect all those wires. He knows all this kind of stuff. And then you go back and talk to him and go, hey, man, you know all this stuff? Oh, yeah, I know all that stuff. Yeah, it's great. Hey, what kind of music do you like? Well, I don't really like music. I listen to NPR. Okay, great. And then all of a sudden, now he's the producer. And a lot of times, because everybody else is on stage, he's unchecked. I love what he was saying earlier about checking. That's huge. So it's just one of the things that, exactly what you're talking about, being able to, and I'm sure he's going to talk more about it, but being able to come behind and kind of go, okay, is that meeting the expectation? Is that meeting the vision? And if it is, okay, great. And if it's not, how do we help them be a little bit better? And in these terms, a lot of times, I don't really want to get too far into, you need to be, elevation, or you need to be this, or you need to be that, or whatever, or Joel Osteen, or that kind of thing. I mean, there's a place for that. A lot of times I kind of ask the question is do you really want to be that? Because there's a whole lot of things that come with that that you might not want.
Yeah.
So you might need to think about that. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. Thank you. You're circling me back around, man. I'm loving it. Seriously. Yeah. What's that? Oh, sorry. He goes, hey, on this, he was kind of going, he's kind of pointing out that that it was, the whole idea of this is actually intent, what's your actual intent with things. And so, no, that's a great question. And I had my moment, so now I'm back in the role here. I can kind of circle back to that. So the intent thing is a big thing for me, because my whole idea is that if you can't know where you want to go, if you don't have the vision for what you want to do, how can you tell anybody else what that vision is? How can you expect anybody else to follow you there? How can you expect anybody to connect with it when they come in, because you don't know what you're doing? If you're just winging it all the time, it's kind of like, well, okay, well, it's, don't get me wrong. There's a difference between listening to the Spirit and moving with the Spirit, but there's a big difference between, hey, I'm just going to go and just do something and not really have a plan. Even when you have a plan, sometimes that plan doesn't go well. Like, I had a plan. I'm afraid about this. I had a plan. I do this a lot, actually, which is really hilarious. It doesn't seem that way, but I don't do this a lot, but I speak a lot, actually. And this is the first time this has ever happened, so this is kind of one of those things. But you guys have been gracious, so it's blessed me. But it's kind of one of those things I kind of talk about, what if the White House called? And I know that's kind of a thing. I used to say it when Obama was in, and I'd get, whatever, and then I said it when Bush was in, and then you get different people that would say whatever, and now you get another people that'll say whatever. But let's just say that you agree with everything the White House is doing right now, and they call you, okay? So let's pretend, and let's go there. So the White House calls, and they said, hey, we're going to do this special thing, and we would like you guys to come and lead some worship songs on the front lawn, nationally televised. It's going to be on every television in the U.S. Are you going to wing it? Are you going to think about what you're going to do? Are you going to do it well? Okay. So now I got another question. The creator of the universe just called. And he said, I want you to lead my people this weekend, and you're going to wing it. You know what I mean? So coming back to, the intent, what is the intent? What is the heart of this? And when I think about the heart of this, I think about the heart of Jesus is he wants to connect with those people. He wants to personally connect with people. He wants to have that moment. And we're supposed to usher that moment in. And that's a big part, And again, there's a whole lot of different styles of people that again, we have the lights and the video and that kind of thing would be one style. You have another style that's very, very low tech, and it doesn't make one right or the other. The only thing that I see that makes it right or the other is that you got the vision for the people that are going to be available for that. Like my wife grew up in a very conservative place. And it's very funny because she'll go with me sometimes, and sometimes she'll actually walk to the door of a place, and it's not that it's a bad place, but it'll be a very conservative type Baptist church or something like that. And she'll just walk in the front door and go, I gotta go. I can't be here. And it is one of those things, because of her experiences, that's her relationship with that feel, right? Everybody's been hurt by something. I was just talking to some friends about a year ago, and these guys are pretty hip type people in the music industry. And they were going, man, we got this church. You got to come down and check it out. It's the most amazing thing. And I'm going, oh, this is going to be crazy. They're going to be swinging from the rafters. It's going to be, oh, have mercy. And I go there and I meet the pastors. We all went out to lunch really quick. I meet the pastors, and this is a big Southern Baptist pastor. And then his worship leaders was from a really big AG church, Assembly of God church. And they're like, they're just on fire, and they're just great guys. And we just had a great lunch and great time. And we say, okay, come on, let's go to the church. We got to show you. We're excited. And I go to this church, and it's just, there's like nothing in it. I mean, like nothing. There's actually like a choir stand and an organ. That's it. And I'm going, okay. And I think it was actually Anglican or something like that. And I'm going, okay. And I'm kind of thinking they're pulling my leg a little bit, just because they build it up so much, you know what I mean? And again, you got to know, I grew up in the Northeast. So I actually was born Catholic, grew up Assembly of God, walked away from the church, and then came back Southern Baptist, and then actually went to school in a Southern Baptist school, and the dogma was so thick that I decided, I'm done with all that. I'm going non-denominational. So I just did. So I have a pretty good spiel and feel for everything, you know how that goes, So it was so interesting to me because they're going, we got one word, the liturgy. Boom. And I'm going, are you guys serious? That's what I wanted to get away from when I was a kid. But to them, it was real because they grew up and they got hurt by a place that looked a certain way or that felt a certain way. And so they wanted to look for something else, and they went to something else. And that's kind of what we're finding in the social cycles of things, that the kids that grew up in churches that are the more lights and video heavy are actually looking more for a very conservative place. But the people that grew up in a very conservative place, they have a guttural reaction to that. So they need to find a place that speaks to them. So there's a place in everything for everyone. And that's the key, I think I really wanted to kind of say back to the intent part, is that, when you go back and you have those moments where you're talking to people and you're going, okay, what's God telling me? Who's God? What is the demographic that God is telling me to go reach? Okay? And I'm not trying to be something that I'm not, because I believe if God's calling you to that, then it's going to be something that you understand at least. But it's also knowing and kind of diving into, okay, what is that person, going to respond to? How do we get them to actually respond to that? And again, and I know that this is kind of a little out of the audio versus video or any of that kind of stuff too, but it's just kind of one of those things I like to talk about that, because that drives everything that you do in audio and video. If you don't have that vision that looks down upon each of these things, then it's really hard to know or really hard to connect with the people that you're trying to connect with. So, is that good?
We have just
You have more time?
we have a couple of minutes left. Any
Okay.
questions? Yes.
You mentioned you have 5 guys on your audio team and you want to make sure the sound is good every Sunday. How do you accomplish that, or what's the tip for balancing all those personalities and those mixes?
I would say the biggest thing that I would say is, again, setting a precedent. You know what I mean? So setting a mix, showing them exactly what that mix is supposed to be, talking it through and going, okay, hey, this is what I did. So there's a really good leadership thing of I'm going to get this wrong, but that's okay. I do, you watch. I do, you help. You do, I watch. And then you do. Right? And that's really what you got to do with each one of those team members. Is somebody needs the vision, whoever that may be, and that might be given to you by the head pastor or whoever, but you need to have the vision, and you need to go, okay, this is the expectation, guys. This is the bar. And taste doesn't matter. Because just because he likes to mix a certain way, and he likes to mix a different way, they might not feed the vision. You get where I'm at? So to me, if you are that person, then you need to be the one in charge, and you need the one to set that vision and show them how to get to that vision. Okay? And then, like he said this morning, which he stole my thunder a lot because it was really good.
Sorry, man.
But it's one of those things you need to go back and check. And I love what you said earlier. What was that? It's what you let them get away with.
It's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate.
It's what you tolerate. That's huge, And it's just one of those things, again, I just go back to, that you gotta have a heart for it, but if you have the heart for it, then personal preference goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can't go away, then they need to have a little bit of a heart check.
And simplifying what's going on stage, because every time you switch something on stage, it means you got to change something here. And if you're doing live broadcast, you got to change it 2 spots. And every time you make a change here, now you're affecting gate, compression, EQ, gain structure. There's a lot of things that get affected there. Now, for us, guess what? Electric drums. That may not fit everybody's cup of tea, and that's cool. But you know what? Most drummers don't know how to drum tech. They don't know how to tune their drum set. They don't know what heads to put on there. They don't keep it in tune. Most sound guys don't even know how to mic a drum set and do the proper processing.
Exactly right.
Every time something changes up here, it changes out there. Mm-hmm. Now, Tony travels the world, okay? I love the vision so much. I said, hey, Tony, we have a PDX 500. Will you just please plug into this? No stage amp, but we got the top of the line AVL in-ears. And guess what? It keeps things clean up here, keeps the studio sound out there. I'm protecting my sound. And he's got the heart to say, absolutely not. No.
Exactly.
But again, it means that we can switch out players, but we're not switching out gear.
Yeah.
And it's standard. Same keyboard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Same mics, same drums,
Exactly.
we have a house bass. So
I had a thing, I made a lot of drummers mad one time at an event that we were talking about things, and the question came up. Somebody asked, hey, what should we do? You know, should we do drums in a cage, drums out of a cage? You know, how should we do this? And at the time, we had a drummer that was really spectacular, and he was actually able to control himself and actually really drum fantastically. And so we did a couple different things that he showed some dynamics and some different things like that. And then I said, okay, everybody, so this is how we go. So you either have electronic drums, whether you can give or take. You put the drummer in a cage, which has pros and cons. Or you can take all that money and you can get the drummer some lessons. And everybody goes, oh. I said, don't shoot the messenger, I don't know, but it's one of those things. I love the way that they're doing here, kind of going, they even spent the extra to make the form look right so people were comfortable. And I love that, because that's an important part. Having the little pad things, people kind of get a little, but it looks like a real drum set. So most people wouldn't even know that it isn't. But again, it protects, like you said, protects the vision, protects what's going on. And it also protects the team, because again, like you said, if they don't know or aren't experienced enough to have a drum set that they can mic and get all the right things dialed in and have a consistent sound, then that's more pressure for them. Eventually they might get to that point that they want to do that because that's where they want to be. But man, if you can take that off of them, that's a whole nother thing that opens up for other people to be able to step into that role, because they don't need to be here. It's a little bit more accessible.
yeah.